My mom invited me to Christmas dinner after 5 years of dead silence. 5 years. No calls, no texts, nothing. Then a handwritten letter. I miss you. Come home. I drove 4 hours through the snow. I brought wine. I brought cookies. I was so happy I couldn't stop crying behind the wheel. When I pulled onto Maple Drive, every house was glowing. Except hers. Pitch black. Not a single light on. I knocked. The door opened to darkness. Then my mom's voice cut through. We just wanted to see if you'd still come running. My sister burst out laughing from the window upstairs. 6 neighbors stood in the yard, watching. Some were recording. My name is Charlotte Afton. I'm 33. And what I said next made every single one of them stop laughing. But to understand why, you need to know what happened 5 years before that night. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor of a building with no elevator. The water pressure is terrible on Tuesdays, and the couple upstairs argues about sourdough starter at least twice a week. It's the best place I've ever lived. I'm a project manager at a commercial real estate firm. I handle acquisitions, foreclosures, property audits, the ugly paperwork side of houses nobody wants to think about. I'm not rich. I drive a 9-year-old Honda. But every bill that comes in gets paid on time, and every dollar in my savings account is mine. I've been doing this since I was 22. Graduated college, got a job, paid my own rent. While I was still living back home in Jessup, I handed my mother a check every month. She never said thank you. She never said anything about it, actually. The money just disappeared into the house like it was owed. 5 years ago, my mother told me I was dead to her. She blocked my number. She told the neighbors I left because I was selfish, that I abandoned the family. Every Christmas since then, I ate dinner alone. Frozen lasagna the first year, Thai takeout the next. By year 3, I stopped pretending it was a holiday at all. I'd just sit on my couch with a blanket and watch whatever was on. I'm telling you this so you understand something. I wasn't sitting around waiting to be rescued. I wasn't broken. I was just a woman who learned to eat dinner alone without making it a tragedy. But I hadn't told you yet why my mother kicked me out. Why 5 years of silence started with one conversation at a kitchen table in a house that smelled like pine sol and resentment. I was 28, still living in Jessup, still handing my mother $600 a month toward the mortgage. I didn't mind. The house was old, the roof leaked in March, and I figured helping out was what family did. Then I got a job offer, a real one. A project coordinator position at a firm in the city, double my salary, benefits, a desk with my name on it. I came home that night buzzing, practically floating. I sat down at the kitchen table and told my mother. I told her I'd still send money. I told her I'd visit. I told her everything I thought she'd want to hear. She stared at me like I'd spit on the floor. You're leaving. Not a question. Mom, the pay is twice what I make here. Just like your father. She stood up. The chair scraped the linoleum. Selfish, ungrateful, running off the second something better comes along. My sister Megan was leaning against the fridge. 24 years old, still lived at home, still let Mom do her laundry. She didn't miss a beat. She always only thinks about herself, Mom. Our neighbor Ruth Kellerman was sitting right there. She'd come over for coffee. She saw the whole thing. My mother pointed at the door. You walk out, you're dead to me, just like your father. I packed 2 suitcases that night, carried them down the stairs past my mother, who stood in the hallway with her arms crossed and didn't say a word. Ruth held the front door open for me. She didn't say anything either, but she squeezed my arm as I passed. Here's the part I didn't know until much later. The $600 I'd been paying every month? That was most of the mortgage. When I stopped, the cracks started. 5 years of nothing. And then the letter. It arrived on a Monday in early December, tucked between a utility bill and a coupon for oil changes. Cream-colored envelope. My mother's handwriting. That sharp, impatient cursive I'd recognize anywhere. Charlotte. This Christmas, I want the family together. I miss you. Mom. I read it 4 times. The handwriting was my mother's. But the kindness didn't sound like her at all. I sat with it for 2 days. Turned it over in my head while reviewing property files at work. Thought about it while heating up leftover soup. Considered calling, but her number was the one that blocked mine. Here's the thing, though. The letter wasn't the reason I decided to go back. 3 days before that envelope showed up, I was running a routine audit at the office. Foreclosure listings for the Tri-County area. Part of the job. Scanning addresses, checking status, flagging opportunities. My eyes went down the list the way they always did. Fast, mechanical. And then I stopped. 14 Maple Drive. Jessup. My mother's house. 4 months in default. Notice already filed. Auction scheduled in 30 days. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I picked up the phone and called Ben Harlow, my best friend from college, real estate attorney, the kind of guy who answers on the first ring even when he's eating lunch. Ben, I need you to look into something for me. So when the letter arrived, I already knew the house was in trouble. And I already had a plan that had nothing to do with Christmas dinner. I decided to drive home, but not because my mother missed me. She didn't know it yet. Nobody did. But that letter from Megan's idea, and I wouldn't learn that part until later. Ben called me back the next morning. It's bad, Charlotte, 4 months behind. Bank's already sent the notice of default. Your mother hasn't responded to a single letter. She never opens mail she doesn't want to read. Well, she's going to want to read this one. Auction's set for December 18th. If nobody bids, the bank takes possession and lists it. I sat in my office chair, staring at the parking lot through my window. 14 Maple Drive, the house where I learned to ride a bike in the driveway, the upstairs bedroom where I studied until 2 in the morning, every night, for years. The kitchen table where I did homework with a calculator and a dictionary while my mother watched TV in the next room. Some stranger was going to own that. I want to be clear about something. I didn't do what I did next for my mother. I didn't do it for Megan. I did it because that house meant something to me. The walls, the stairs, the creak on the 5th step, those were mine. They belonged to the girl who grew up there. And I wasn't going to let them disappear because Diane Afton couldn't be bothered to open her mail. Ben, what would it take to buy it at auction? Silence on the line for 3 seconds. You're serious? Cash offer. Through an LLC. I already have one set up through the firm. What do I need? He walked me through it. The house was worth maybe 140 in that market. Foreclosure auctions in small towns don't draw crowds. With a cash bid at the right number, I could close in under 10 days. You know what this means, right? Ben said. You'd own the house your mother lives in. I know exactly what it means. The auction was on a Wednesday, December 18th. A conference room at the county courthouse, fluorescent lights, folding chairs. 4 properties on the block. Mine was third. 2 other bidders showed up for Maple Drive. A flipper from 2 counties over and a rental company. I outbid both of them. It wasn't dramatic. It was paperwork and a cashier's check, and Ben on the phone confirming the wire. 7 business days later, the deed was recorded at the county clerk's office. My LLC listed as the owner, me as the sole member. I held the certified copy in my hands in Ben's office and felt, I don't know, not triumph, something quieter, like catching something fragile right before it hits the ground. Here's the part that matters. I didn't buy the house to punish anyone. My plan was simple. Drive home for Christmas, sit down with my mother, explain the foreclosure, show her the deed, offer her a lease at fair market rent, below what any landlord in Jessup would charge, give her a way to stay. That was it. That was the whole plan. I even drafted a lease agreement on my laptop the night before the drive. Printed it out, slid it into a manila envelope. Fair terms, month to month. First and last, no deposit. I figured she'd argue, but she'd sign. Because the alternative was losing the house to someone who'd triple the rent and repaint the shutters gray. Before I left, I called Ben one more time. Can you bring a copy of the deed to the Pine Ridge Inn in Jessup? Just in case I need to show her proof. He said he would. I thanked him and hung up. I had no idea how much I was going to need that proof. December 24th. I packed the car at noon. Wine, a good bottle, the kind you bring when you're trying. A bakery box of almond cookies from the Italian place near my apartment, and the manila envelope tucked into the side pocket of my coat. 4 hours on the highway. The exits got smaller, the trees got thicker, the billboards went from insurance ads to church signs. I know that road the way you know the drive to a place that raised you. every curve memorized, every landmark a timestamp. Somewhere around hour 3, I pulled up an old voicemail, the one I'd saved from 5 years ago. My mother's voice, sharp and final. "Don't call back. Don't come back. We're done." I'd kept it. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me needed proof that I didn't imagine it, that the silence wasn't something I chose. I put the phone down and kept driving. Was I being stupid? Maybe. Driving 4 hours on Christmas Eve with cookies and wine and a lease agreement for a woman who told me I was dead to her. But I had a purpose. I wasn't going back to beg. I was going back because the house needed saving, and I was the only one who could do it. I hit Jessup just after 6. The town looked the same. Gas station, dollar store, the diner where Megan and I used to split a milkshake when we were kids. Main Street was strung with white lights. I turned onto Maple Drive. Every house was lit up, porches glowing, candles in windows, wreaths on doors. December in a small town, the way it's supposed to look. Except 14 Maple Drive. Dark. Every window black. Not a single light on. I parked at the curb, and I heard laughter. I walked up the porch steps with the wine in one hand and the bakery box balanced on the other. The wood creaked under my boots the way it always had. 3rd step, then 5th. I knocked. 3 times. The door swung open slowly, and behind it was nothing but black. Then a shape moved. My mother stepped into the doorframe, arms folded, lips pressed tight. Behind her, in the dark hallway, I could see the faint blue glow of a phone screen. "Well, well," Diane's voice, low and satisfied. She actually came. Megan materialized behind her, phone raised, recording. "I told you she would. Pathetic." "Mom?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "What's going on?" She tilted her head. The porch light from the neighbor's house caught the side of her face, and she was smiling. Not warmly. The way someone smiles when they've won a bet. "We just wanted to see if you'd still come running. Like a dog." Something cold dropped through my chest. I looked past her, into the yard. 6, 7 people stood in the side yard and on the sidewalk. Neighbors, a couple of cousins I barely recognized. Greg Dawson, my mother's boyfriend, stood near the garage, arms at his sides, looking at the ground. Megan swung the camera toward me. "Smile, Charlotte. You're on camera." I looked at the wine in my hand. The cookies, the 4-hour drive, the letter I'd read 4 times. None of it was real. The letter, the invitation, the "I miss you," all of it was a stage set. And I was the show. I didn't cry. Something inside me went very still, like a lake freezing over in one breath. I looked at my mother, and I saw her clearly. She was wearing lipstick, deep red, carefully applied. Her good blouse, the one she used to save for church. Earrings. She'd dressed up for this. She'd stood in front of a mirror, put on her face, and walked into a dark house to wait for me to knock. This wasn't spontaneous. This was a production. I stood on the porch, holding a bottle of wine nobody was going to drink, and the realization settled over me like cold water. 5 years, Diane said, stepping out onto the porch. 5 years and you still came running. You know why? I set the bakery box on the railing. Tell me. Because you need us. You've always needed us. Is that what you think? She took another step closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. I know it. Look at you. No husband, no kids. Driving back to Mommy's house on Christmas Eve. She turned to the small crowd in the yard. What does that tell you? Nobody answered. A couple of them shifted on their feet. One woman I didn't recognize was looking at her phone, uncomfortable. Megan from the doorway kept recording. It tells everyone exactly what we already knew. I noticed Ruth Kellerman then. She was standing at the edge of the yard, near the mailbox. 72 years old. Gray coat, arms folded. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't smiling. Her jaw was set the way it gets when she's holding something back. My mother turned back to me, satisfied. She was performing. Every word, every pause. This was a woman putting on a show for an audience. I looked down at the porch boards, the ones I used to sit on as a kid, eating popsicles in July. Then I looked up. Are we done with this part, Mom? Greg stepped forward from the driveway. He was a tall man, soft around the middle, the kind of guy who always looked like he was about to apologize. Diane, Maybe that's enough. My mother didn't even turn around. Greg, shut up. This is between me and my daughter. He stopped, took a half step back, put his hands in his jacket pockets. And that was it. That was the full extent of Greg Dawson's courage. I watched him retreat. Greg lived in this house. He paid the electric bill every month. He slept in the bedroom my father used to sleep in. And he couldn't stand up to Diane for 5 seconds, because he needed the roof over his head. And Diane knew it. Megan was still filming. She'd moved to the front window now, getting a wider angle. She was grinning. This is going to get so many views. I looked at the wine bottle sitting on the porch railing, at the cookies, at the dark house behind my mother, at the faces in the yard, some amused, some uncomfortable, all watching. I set the wine down on the step, slowly, deliberately. Then I pulled out my phone, opened a text thread, typed 2 words, sent it, put the phone back in my pocket. Megan noticed. Who are you texting? Your therapist? I didn't answer. I picked up the bakery box and handed it to Greg. He took it, confused. Merry Christmas, Greg. Then I looked at my mother. You're right about one thing, Mom. I did come here tonight for a reason. But it wasn't the reason you think. She blinked. For a fraction of a second, something flickered across her face. Not guilt, uncertainty. She pushed it down fast. But I saw it. You know, right there, standing on that porch, the porch of the house I'd just bought 6 days earlier. I listened to my own mother call me pathetic in front of the neighbors. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. If you want to know what I said next, the sentence that made my mother stop laughing, hit that subscribe button right now. And if you're the kind of person who understands what it feels like to show up with good intentions and get handed humiliation instead, go ahead and hit like. So I know I'm not telling this story alone. Everyone expected me to leave. I could feel it. The neighbors shifting, Greg clutching the bakery box, Megan already crafting the caption in her head. Poor Charlotte came crawling back, got what she deserved. I didn't leave. You know what? I said. Fine, turn on the lights, let's have dinner. Diane's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Megan lowered her phone an inch. What? I drove 4 hours. I'm not leaving without saying what I came to say. I stepped past my mother, over the threshold, into the dark house. My shoulder brushed hers. She didn't move. I found the light switch by memory. The hallway bulb flickered on, a 40-watt yellow that made everything look tired. The wallpaper was the same. The carpet runner on the stairs was the same. The smell was the same. Pine sol, old wood, and something faintly burnt from the furnace. I walked into the kitchen and stopped. The table was bare. No plates, no food, no turkey, no pie, no rolls. The oven was cold. The stove was clean. There was nothing. There's no dinner, I said. Diane had followed me in. She leaned against the counter. Did you actually think we cooked for you? I pulled out the chair at the far end of the table. The one by the window. The one I'd sat in every night for 12 years, doing homework with a calculator and a highlighter, and the sound of the TV bleeding through the wall. I sat down. No, I said. I didn't think you cooked for me. The table was empty. The kitchen was cold. But I sat there because I knew something they didn't. And it was right there in my coat pocket, folded inside a manila envelope, waiting. Diane watched me for a long moment. I could see her recalculating. The prank was supposed to end with me in tears, running back to my car. Instead, I was sitting at her kitchen table like I owned the place. She sat down across from me, crossed her legs. The lipstick had smudged on one corner. The performance was cracking. Look, Charlotte. Her voice shifted, softer now, a different register. The joke's over. We do need to talk. About what? Things have been tight. The house needs work. The furnace broke last month. From the living room, Megan called out, phone still in hand. Tell her about the roof, Mom. Diane waved her off. The point is, you have a good job now. You could help, if you wanted to. There it was. The architecture of the evening, laid bare. Prank first, humiliate, establish dominance. Then soften the voice and open the palm. I'd seen this pattern before. In deals that go sideways, in negotiations where one side tries to destabilize the other before making the ask. I'd seen it in conference rooms and courthouse lobbies. I just never expected to see it at my mother's kitchen table. "How much do you owe on the mortgage, Mom?" She went still. Not the dramatic kind, the involuntary kind. The kind where your body freezes because your brain hasn't caught up yet. "What?" "The mortgage. How much is left?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Megan appeared in the kitchen doorway. "What's she talking about?" Diane didn't look at her. She was looking at me. And for the first time all night, she wasn't performing. She was afraid. "The house is fine," Diane said. But her voice had thinned. "The house is not fine, Mom." She stood up. The chair scraped the floor the same way it had 5 years ago, the night she'd told me I was dead to her. "You don't know what you're talking about. You've been gone 5 years." "I know." Silence. 3 seconds. 5. "I know a lot of things." Megan stepped into the kitchen. "She's bluffing. She doesn't know anything." I looked at Megan, then at Diane, then at the dark window above the sink, where the reflection showed all three of us in that cramped kitchen, like actors in a play nobody bought tickets to. The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. "That's for me," I said. Diane's head snapped toward the front door. "Who did you invite to my house?" I pushed the chair back and stood, looked at my mother, and for the first time that night, I smiled. Small, steady. "That's a very interesting choice of words, Mom." I walked to the front door, opened it. Ben Harlow stood on the porch, leather briefcase in one hand, collar turned up against the cold, snow dusting his shoulders. He looked past me into the hallway, took in the scene, the coat rack, the wallpaper, the cluster of confused faces, and nodded once. "Merry Christmas, Charlotte. I brought the paperwork." Behind me, I heard Diane's voice, strained and sharp. "Who the hell is that?" I stepped aside to let Ben in. "Mom, this is Ben. He's a real estate attorney." The kitchen went quiet. The kind of quiet that has weight to it. The kind that presses down on everyone in the room at once. Diane said, "A what?" Diane came out of the kitchen, arms folded. She looked Ben up and down. Briefcase, button down, clean shoes. Her lip curled. "Oh, you brought a man." She looked at the neighbors still lingering by the porch. "She brought a man to impress us." Megan leaned against the hallway wall, phone aimed at Ben. "Probably a boyfriend she hired." Ben didn't flinch. He stepped inside, nodded politely at Diane, at Megan, at Greg, who was still clutching the bakery box by the stairs. Then he walked to the kitchen table and set the briefcase down. Calm, practiced, the way he'd done it in 100 closings. "He's not a boyfriend," I said. "He's a real estate attorney." Diane's smile vanished. The neighbors had started drifting closer. 2 of them were on the porch now, looking through the open front door. Ruth Kellerman stood at the threshold, watching. Greg set the bakery box down on the hall table. He was staring at the briefcase, then at me, then at Diane. I could see him doing the math, slow but getting there. "What is this, Charlotte?" Diane's voice had dropped half an octave. "Sit down, Mom." "Don't tell me to sit down in my own—" "Sit down. You wanted to talk about the house, so let's talk about the house." Something shifted in the room. It was small, just a breath of air changing direction. But I felt it. Diane felt it too. Her chin dropped a fraction of an inch. Her shoulders pulled back. She walked to the table. She sat. For the first time in my life, my mother did what I asked her to do. Ben opened the briefcase and pulled out a folder. "I'll try to keep this brief," he said. "Mom." I kept my voice level, measured. The way I talked in client meetings when the numbers were bad and the client didn't want to hear them. "You haven't paid the mortgage in 4 months. The bank sent 3 notices. You threw them away. That is none of your business." It became my business when the house showed up in a foreclosure listing, at my office. The whispers started in the hallway. One of the neighbors, I think it was Linda from across the street, turned to the woman beside her and said something I couldn't hear. Ruth stepped fully into the kitchen now. She stood by the door, arms at her sides, listening. Megan lowered her phone. "You're lying. Mom said the house was paid off." I looked at my sister, then at my mother. Mom told you the house was paid off? Diane said nothing. Is that what you told her, Mom? Diane's jaw tightened. Her hands were flat on the table, pressing down like she was trying to keep it from floating away. From the hallway, Greg spoke. His voice was thin. Diane, is this true? She turned on him so fast the chair squeaked. Greg, shut up. But you said... I said shut up. The room flinched. All of it. The neighbors in the hall, Ruth by the door, Greg in the corner. Even Megan took a small step back. Diane had been lying to everyone. Not just about the prank, about the house, about the mortgage, about everything. Greg thought the house was paid off. Megan thought the house was paid off. The neighbors probably did too. I watched my mother's face and I thought, this is what happens when a wall comes down. It doesn't crumble slowly, it just drops. Diane stood. She pointed at me across the table. Her hand was shaking, but her voice came out hard. You come into my house and humiliate me? In front of everyone? I haven't humiliated anyone, Mom. I'm stating facts. You're just like your father. Always had to be right. Always had to win. She turned to the neighbors crowding the hallway. Her voice shifted again, higher, thinner, the tremor calculated. You see this? This is why I cut her off. She's cruel. She's always been cruel. A few of them looked at each other, uncomfortable. One couple took a step toward the front door. Then Ruth spoke. Diane. Ruth's voice was low and steady, the voice of a woman who'd lived in the same house for 46 years and had earned the right to say what she thought. I was there the night you kicked her out. She wasn't cruel. She was 28 and carrying 2 suitcases. The kitchen went dead silent. Diane's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Megan looked at Ruth. What are you talking about? Ruth turned to Megan. Your mother threw Charlotte's clothes on the front lawn. In December. I watched from my kitchen window. Your mother told everyone Charlotte left by choice. She didn't. Diane found her voice. Ruth, this doesn't concern you. It concerns me because I've listened to you tell that story wrong for 5 years, and I'm standing in a room full of people who deserve to hear it right. Nobody moved. The furnace kicked on somewhere below us, a low rumble through the floor. Megan's phone was still recording. She'd forgotten she was holding it. The screen faced the ceiling. Diane looked at Ruth the way you look at someone who's just pulled a chair out from under you. Megan turned on me. Her eyes were wet. Not from sadness, from the raw, shaking kind of anger that comes when the story you've been telling yourself starts to crack. So what? Her voice came out ragged. So Mom has money problems. That doesn't give you the right to come here and... Megan, I said it gently. Did you come up with the prank? She stopped mid-sentence. Her mouth stayed open for a beat. The letter, I continued. The handwriting was Mom's, but the idea, the invite? You texted the neighbors. You set up the camera angles. You planned the dark house. It was a joke. A joke, on Christmas Eve, after 5 years. You wanted to see if I'd still come running. Your word. She gripped the phone with both hands. You don't get to come back and act like you're better than us. I don't think I'm better than anyone, Megan. Then why are you doing this? I stood, walked to the table where Ben's briefcase sat open. I placed my hand on the folder inside. Let me tell you something funny, Megan. Actually funny. Everyone in the room was looking at me now. Diane at the table, knuckles white. Megan in the doorway, phone forgotten at her side. Greg against the wall, face gray. Ruth, arms folded, waiting. The neighbors crowded behind her, craning to see. Ben caught my eye, a small nod. I opened the folder. Inside was a single document, county seal in the corner. Legal description of the property at 14 Maple Drive, Jessup, recorded and stamped by the clerk's office. A deed of title, with my name on it. I laid it on the kitchen table face up and slid it toward my mother. The bank auctioned this house 6 days ago, I said. My voice was even. Quiet, even. The same tone I use when I'm closing a deal, and the numbers speak louder than anything I could say. Foreclosure sale, open to the public, and I bought it. Nobody breathed. This house, 14 Maple Drive, belongs to me. My name is on the deed, recorded at the county clerk's office 3 days ago. Ben stepped forward. The sale was conducted through proper foreclosure proceedings. The deed has been recorded. Charlotte is the legal owner of this property. Diane looked down at the paper on the table. I watched her eyes move across it. The county seal, the legal description, the recording stamp, my LLC name. Her hands came up from the table and hovered over the document like she was afraid to touch it. "This is fake," she whispered. "It's a certified copy. You can verify it with the county clerk on Monday." Megan lunged for the paper. She snatched it up, held it under the kitchen light, turned it over. Her lips moved as she read. "This can't be real." She looked at Ben. "This has to be fake." "It's not," Ben said. "I handled the closing personally." Megan dropped the paper on the table like it had burned her. I looked at my mother. She was still sitting, still staring at the spot where the deed had been. Her lipstick was a dark line against skin that had gone pale. "You asked me who I invited to your house," I said. "But this isn't your house anymore, Mom." I let that land. "It's mine." The furnace hummed, the kitchen light buzzed, and my mother didn't say a word. Diane found her voice. It came out cracked, like something old breaking under pressure. "You can't do this. I'm your mother. And I'm the person who just saved this house from being sold to a stranger at auction. You're welcome." Megan was crying now. Not the quiet kind, the angry kind, with clenched fists and red blotches climbing her neck. "You bought our house to punish us?" "I bought this house because it was about to be auctioned to whoever showed up with cash. A flipper from Glendale, a rental company, someone who'd gut it and double the rent. Would you rather that happened?" Megan didn't answer. Greg had sunk into the chair by the stairs. His elbows were on his knees, his hands over his face. "Diane," he said, muffled. "You told me the house was fine. You told me we were good." Diane spun on him. "This is your fault. You never contributed enough. I paid the electric bill every single month. You said that was all we needed. If you'd gotten a better job—" "You told me the mortgage was paid off, Diane." The room was fracturing. Everyone talking at once. Megan shouting at me, Diane shouting at Greg, Greg shouting at Diane. The neighbors started pulling back. I saw Linda touch her husband's arm and tilt her head toward the door. A man I didn't know muttered, "I think we should go." Two couples peeled off, walking fast down the porch steps. Through it all, Ruth Kellerman stood by the kitchen door, arms folded. She caught my eye across the room. She nodded. Small, firm. I took a breath. I wasn't finished. Diane turned to the remaining neighbors, 3 of them still in the hallway. Her chin lifted. Her voice cracked strategically. A performance so practiced I could almost see the stage directions. "You see what she's doing? My own daughter. Stealing my house. On Christmas Eve." I stayed seated. I didn't stand. Didn't raise my voice. "I didn't steal anything, Mom. I bought it at a public auction. After you defaulted. If I hadn't, a rental company from Glendale would have. You planned this. You planned all of this. I planned to come here tonight and offer you a lease, a fair rent, below market, a way for you to stay in this house." I paused. "But you planned a prank instead." I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the manila envelope, the one I'd prepared the night before, the lease agreement I'd drafted at my kitchen table at midnight, trying to get the terms right, trying to be fair. I set it on the table, next to the deed. "This is a lease agreement, month to month, fair rent, less than any landlord in Jessup would charge. First and last, no deposit. I was going to give this to you tonight, before you turned off the lights and called me pathetic in front of the neighbors." Diane looked at the envelope. She didn't touch it. "The offer stands," I said, "but only until January 1st. The kitchen clock ticked. The furnace hummed. Outside, I could hear someone's car starting. Another neighbor leaving. Diane stared at the envelope like it was a trap. And maybe to her, it was. Because accepting it meant admitting I'd won. And Diane Afton had never admitted that to anyone. My mother didn't reach for the envelope. She just sat there, hands in her lap, lipstick smudged, eyes fixed on the table. I stood up, looked around the kitchen. At Diane, still sitting. At Megan, red-eyed in the doorway. At Greg, slumped by the stairs. At Ruth, steady as stone. At the last neighbors hovering in the hall, witnessing the end of a story 5 years in the making. I want to be clear about something. My voice was calm. The kind of calm you earn, not the kind you fake. I didn't buy this house to hurt any of you. I bought it because it was going to be sold to someone who never sat at this table. I looked down at the chair. My chair. The one by the window. I did homework at this table every night for 12 years. I sat right here. That's why I'm here. I turned to Diane. You can stay. You can pay rent. We can handle this like adults. Or you can keep calling me pathetic, and I'll list the house in March. I turned to Megan. Delete the video. Whatever you were planning to post tonight, every person in this room saw what actually happened. Megan's hand tightened on the phone, but she didn't lift it. I picked up my car keys from the counter, put my coat back on, buttoned it slowly. I'll be at the Pine Ridge Inn tonight. My number hasn't changed. I looked at my mother. It never changed, Mom. You just never called. I walked to the front door, stepped onto the porch. The cold hit me, clean and sharp, nothing like the air inside that house. Snow was falling, light, easy flakes catching in the streetlights. Every other house on Maple Drive was still glowing. I walked to my car. I didn't look back. Behind me, through the open front door, I heard nothing. Absolute silence. And that was enough. When I walked off that porch, I didn't know if my mother would call. I didn't know if Megan would delete the video. I just knew that for the first time in my life, I was walking away because I chose to, not because someone threw me out. If you've made it this far, you understand that feeling. Drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever had to set a boundary with someone who was supposed to love you unconditionally? And stay with me, because what happened after Christmas night is what changed everything for good. The Pine Ridge Inn smelled like pine needles and burned coffee. My room was on the second floor. Floral wallpaper, a radiator that clanked every 20 minutes, a window that looked out over the parking lot, and beyond that, the edge of Jessup's main street. Christmas morning. Quiet. The quietest Christmas I'd had in 5 years, which was saying something, because all my Christmases had been quiet. Ben showed up at 9 with 2 coffees from the gas station. He sat across from me in the lobby, which was empty except for a fake tree with blinking lights and a front desk clerk reading a paperback. "How are you doing?" he asked. "I'm fine." That's not an answer. It's the one I've got. My phone buzzed on the table between us. I looked down. Greg. A text, sent at 7:30 that morning. "I didn't know about the mortgage. I'm sorry about last night. I've started packing. I'll find my own place by the end of the week." I stared at it for a moment, then scrolled down. Megan. Sent at 8. "You ruined Christmas." I didn't reply. Then nothing from Diane. No text, no call, no voicemail. Just the blankness of a screen with no notifications. "She's not going to call," I said. Ben leaned back in his chair. "What happens if she doesn't sign the lease?" I sipped the gas station coffee. It was terrible, thin and bitter and exactly what I needed. Then I list the house, and she finds out what a stranger's eviction notice looks like. "You'd do that?" "I gave her a fair deal, Ben. Below market, no deposit. All she has to do is sign." He nodded, didn't push it. Outside, the snow had stopped. Main Street was empty. Christmas in a small town. December 28th. I was back in the city, sitting at my desk, reviewing a file on a strip mall in Westbrook, when my phone rang. Unknown number. But I knew the area code. "Charlotte?" My mother's voice. Clipped. Cold. No tremor this time. "Mom, you need to give this house back. It's my house. I raised you in it. You raised me and kicked me out of it, and then you stopped paying for it. I'm going to get a lawyer. That's your right. But the sale went through the county, recorded and final. Ben can send you the full documentation if you'd like." "You think you're so smart." Her breathing got louder. "You think because you have some fancy job and some piece of paper? The lease offer expires January 1st, Mom. I'd suggest you read it." Click. She hung up. I set the phone down on my desk, looked at the strip mall file, looked at the parking lot outside my window, looked at the small cactus on my desk that I'd bought because someone told me it was impossible to kill. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I was just still. The way a lake goes still after the wind stops. Not calm exactly, just done moving. I thought about driving back, for a second. Then I didn't. I'd left the door open. I'd offered fair terms. I'd given her a deadline. Anything else would be begging, and I was done begging at 28. 3 days passed. December 29th, 30th, nothing. Then December 31st, New Year's Eve. I was in my apartment, heating soup on the stove, when someone knocked. I looked through the peephole. Megan. Standing in the hallway of my apartment building, no makeup, eyes swollen, snow melting in her hair. I opened the door but didn't step aside. "Mom's not going to sign," Megan said. Her voice was flat, emptied out. "I know. She's packing. She says she'd rather live in her car than rent from you." "That's her choice." Megan looked at the floor, then at me, then at the floor again. Her coat was too thin for the weather. She was shivering. I deleted the video. I leaned against the doorframe. Didn't invite her in. Not yet. "Megan, why are you here?" She pressed her lips together. Hard, like she was trying to physically stop the words from coming out. Then they came anyway. "I didn't know she was going to lose the house. She told me everything was fine. She told me the mortgage was paid off years ago. She told me you left because you were selfish. She told everyone that. I believed her." "I know you did." Megan wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Not delicately, the way you do when you're too tired to care how you look. "Can I rent from you?" She said it fast, like ripping off a bandage. "The house. Can I rent it? I don't have anywhere else to go." I looked at my sister, 29 years old, standing in my hallway on New Year's Eve, asking the woman she'd called pathetic a week ago for a place to live. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel something, not victory, something sadder than that, something heavier. "There are conditions, Megan." She looked up. "There are conditions, and this time I'm the one who sets them." She nodded, small, once. I stepped aside. "Come in. Soup's almost ready." She walked past me. She didn't say thank you, but she sat down at my kitchen table, and she stayed. Diane moved out on January 3rd. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't call. She loaded her car with boxes while Ruth Kellerman watched from her front window, and she drove to her sister's house in Grayson, 40 minutes south. Greg left before her. December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. He found a room for rent above the hardware store on Main Street. Before he left, he taped a note to the kitchen counter. "You did the right thing. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner." I found the note when I came to inspect the house in mid-January. I folded it and put it in my wallet. I still have it. Megan signed the lease on January 2nd. The conditions were clear. Rent paid on the 1st of every month. No exceptions. Diane was not to move back in without written notice and my approval, and absolutely no recording anyone in the house without their consent. Megan agreed to everything without argument. She got a job at a coffee shop 3 blocks from Maple Drive. Started paying rent from her first paycheck. I hired a property manager in Jessup, a woman named Patricia who'd managed rentals in the area for 20 years. I didn't want to be Megan's landlord and her sister at the same time. Patricia handled maintenance requests, collected rent, sent me reports. Clean, professional, boundaries. The neighbors knew, of course. Small town. Word traveled the way it always does, over fences, in parking lots, after church. Ruth told anyone who asked the same thing. That girl saved the house and offered Diane a fair deal. Diane chose her pride. Nobody argued with Ruth. Nobody ever had. By the end of January, the story had settled into Jessup's collective memory the way all stories do in small towns. It just became a thing that happened. I heard about Diane through Ruth mostly. Occasional updates in the margins of our phone calls. Ruth checking in the way neighbors do, casual but deliberate. Diane was telling her sister's neighbors that I'd stolen the house, that I'd tricked her, that I'd used some kind of legal loophole to take what was rightfully hers. But Diane's sister had already heard from Ruth, and from Linda across the street, and from the couple who'd been standing in the yard that night and seen the whole thing. The story Diane had built, the one where Charlotte was the selfish daughter who abandoned her family, didn't hold anymore. It had worked for 5 years because nobody was around to contradict it. But now there were witnesses, a dozen of them. People who'd stood in the cold on Christmas Eve and watched Diane call her daughter pathetic in a dark house. Diane stopped going to her sister's church, stopped showing up to the Tuesday quilting circle, stopped answering calls from women she'd known for 30 years. I don't think anyone punished her. That's not how it works in small towns. People just stopped believing her. And for someone like Diane, someone whose power came from controlling the narrative, that was worse than punishment. Part of me ached for her. A small part. The part that remembered her teaching me to tie my shoes on the front porch. The part that remembered her voice reading me to sleep when I was 4. But that part didn't run things anymore. I didn't call her. I didn't block her either. The door was open. It had always been open. She just had to walk through it without her pride leading the way. I didn't hold my breath. March. 3 months since Christmas. Megan paid rent on time every single month. Patricia confirmed it without me having to ask. First of the month, check in the mailbox, no issues. She was working at the coffee shop 5 days a week. Opened at 6, made lattes for commuters and old men who sat in the corner booth and read the paper. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. We talked on the phone every 2 weeks. Short calls, 10 minutes, maybe 15. The conversations were polite, careful, like two people learning to walk across ice and testing each step before putting their weight down. "I'm sorry about the prank," she said one night in February. Just like that, in the middle of a conversation about whether the kitchen faucet was dripping. I waited. It was my idea. The whole thing. The letter, the dark house, the cameras. I told Mom it would be funny. She paused. I was jealous. You left and built a life. I stayed and didn't. I know, I said.